Welcome to the Occult Rejects. We are joined today by Peter Gray, who is the shit. Now I can't even open the thing. Of course, uh, I'm sorry, Peter, but you are occultist, magician, sorcerer of some renown, quite a bit. And Scarlet Imprint is a major occult publishing press, probably the biggest, probably the most well known. And I think, well, I'm just going to say the works that I distinctly remember, since I can't actually open the tab for your author's bio right now. But the what I did in prep for this episode was read at least a little of Lucifer Princeps, which is your book from 2015, as well as Lucifer Praxis, which is your newest book from 2025. I think it's very aeonic, very interesting. I also listened to your great episode from October with Gordon White, and I know that you have written extensively on the Babylon and Babylon workings with your partner, Alkisti. I hope I said that correctly. Alkisti, thank you. And so I'm really excited. I know everybody's really excited. I'm a little nervous, so I apologize. But, I think this will be really generative and really interesting, especially because we have been speaking as a show. It's not my show, but I think in general, in all the shows offshoot from Rejects, have been speaking on aeonic currents and aeonic work. And I think to sort of uncover the Lucifer current is probably the most occulted. I think Peter has spoken about this extensively, but the most occulted of all. So Peter, you can say anything you want to say about your own work and introduce yourself in the ways that you would like to. But thank you so much, and from all of us, and I'll just say it like that. And obviously, Nick, please introduce yourself and plug your show.
Yes, awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate you doing the intro, Jin. I appreciate it. I don't enjoy doing them myself, so. The Occult Rejects, BitChute, Rumble, YouTube, and all major audio podcasts. Thank you, everybody, for joining. This is very exciting. I'm really happy that we got both of them on. And, I guess, Sabrina, if you want to go next, let everybody know what's going on with you.
Oh, wow, sure. Did not expect to go first, but yeah, let's do it. Hi, everyone. Really excited to see so many people here. I'm super excited for this conversation. For those of you who don't know me, I am a tarot reader, life coach, and professional witchy person. I've got 5 books out, now 2 podcasts, Secrets of a Witch podcast and the Heal and Harm show. I just interviewed Nick for my first episode, so super excited about that. And really stoked to be here with some really amazing people. Big fan of Scarlet Imprint and what they're doing. So if anyone watching does not know their work, check it out. It's super awesome.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sabrina. I definitely appreciate you making it. And Ethan Indigo, what is going on, sir?
Well, honored to be here with you guys. I can't wait to hear the discussion and be involved in communicating. Appreciate everyone. Ethan Indigo Smith, easy to find online, writer, author, and observer, and easy to find online if anyone wants to communicate.
Awesome. Thank you. And Matt Mora, what is going on, buddy? Glad you made it.
What is up? Happy to be here again. How's this food today? So I'm Matt Mora. You can always find me as @MattMora19. That's going to be on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, Ko-Fi, maybe some other place. And there's also my website. That's going to be Kabbalah.com. That's KABALAH.com. There are our spaces we do on X. And you can always find the archives at thetruegraylodge.com with a V, so Truth. And like I said in the latest ones, I'm working more now on some tarot stuff, some really interesting projects. On my pinned Twitter post, you can learn a little bit more, but also you can DM me if you want to be a beta tester of sorts. So yeah, if you're curious, just DM me on any of these platforms. Happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you here, brother. And the Headless Giant himself, what is going on, sir? Please let everybody know what your deal is and all the things you got going on.
Thank you. I'm really proud of myself because I am muted this time, and I don't often do that. So you can find me at the Headless Giant podcast at gmail.com. If you have any sort of esoteric or strange stories that you want to share, or strange dreams even, and me and Nick will read those on Thursday. So check that out. And also, if you want to see my alchemy show, that would be on Mondays with Arrows Up. Check that one out as well. And Tuesdays we do 777, the Kabbalah of Aleister Crowley with Nick. So also I have the Sunday trialogues with Ethan Indigo, and at some point during the week, probably Wednesdays now, we're going to be doing more Rustic Gods. So check that out as well. Thank you very much.
Yes, I do think I don't want to be messing it up, but I do think Jules was planning on doing that tonight, possibly with you. So yeah, look forward to that. I think I'll be able to jump on actually too. That's not much to add, but yeah. And we got Brandon Lee, Magus in the media. Thank you so much, bud. I'm really happy to have you like here and being a part of us. So please let everybody know what is up with you and where they can find all your amazing works.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everyone, for having me on. I am Brandon Lee of Magus in the Media, where we break down myth, magic, and meaning in the stories that we and you love. Find me on all the things, X, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube's the big one. Go there, watch all the things. I love stories and I love media, and I'm here to show the world that magic is everywhere, from dark sorcery to the light, and we can build ourselves up together. I'm really excited. Obviously, we've all heard of Peter Gray, and now I've heard of his lovely wife, and so I'm really excited for this conversation. Let's get to it, huh?
Yes. No, thank you very much for coming on, Brandon. Really appreciate it. And finally, to the guests, I guess, Peter, maybe if you want to go first, please introduce yourselves and let everybody know, kind of what your deal is and what you would like to advertise or plug.
Sure, that was a perfect intro from Jim. We're Scarlet Imprint. We've been. Who are you? This is the trouble I have to deal with all the time. This is my editor. So I'm a writer and an occultist. I run a publishing company called Scarlet Imprint. Otherwise, I am absent online apart from a Substack, The Adder in the Churchyard Wall, where I post my non-published writing. And it's just a pleasure to meet this wide selection of crazy occultists.
He's also a surfer and a mountain biker, and he does lots of other things too. He's not just an occultist.
That was so cute.
Yeah, look at that love right there. Wow.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I hope one day I have somebody do that for me. Like that was really sweet.
Well, there's something interesting is that your life is your great work in a way. So, all the components that go into Peter's life obviously support him as a magician.
Yeah. Physical practice is a very important part of what I do. So, although it's kind of one of those fun things, what people do outside of magic,
it's all magic.
There's not really an outside of magic.
Yeah, it's all part of the flow.
I had mentioned that recently with Sabrina when we were talking about like kind of being, into, I guess, working out or whatever, being trying to stay in fit while you're doing this stuff. And I had even wondered, for me working out, at some point I realized like when I'm doing my stuff, I'm really not paying attention. I'm almost in a flow state, kind of to an extent. And I wonder if that's like an intriguing thing for magicians too, to start finding things to get into. It's, I think it's a plus. I think it helps strengthen that type of practice. I don't know if that's maybe your thoughts as well.
Yeah, you can't draw a line between the two. Like the body is the fundamental magical tool that we have. So preparing and working with that magical tool is important for everything. So it's very easy online for people to talk a lot of shit about like their magical accomplishments or how amazing they are at sex magic or whatever else. And it's like, bro, you don't even lift,
Yeah. Do you even lift, bro?
Yeah, that was fucking awesome.
That is like literally what we were literally just talking about. That. Yeah, being gym rat magic people, I think, is something that more magicians need to get into, like for so many reasons. So I love that. And Peter, you were talking about mountain biking, or Alkisti, you said that Peter does mountain biking. Like, does that get you into a bit of that meditative flow state as well?
Yeah, flow state's kind of critical with all the things that I do. So I'm essentially hunting flow state with the least interference from my equipment as possible. So I spend a lot of time living in the mountains and riding bikes, and I spend a lot of time in the ocean here. So yeah, it's important. it's important. It's a missing part of magical practice. I think even basic yoga has fallen out of a lot of men's magical practice. All the things which were seen as kind of developing the superpowers in the body, which was the initial impact that we had from kind of the return of empire and the Indian approaches to yoga coming across, and they've dropped out a lot. I think people have become far too in their heads about things.
I don't know, because you see much more people talking about the body now. When we started, we found that it wasn't. Everyone was arguing over the minutiae of Crowley or whatever, and I think a lot of that shifted, partly through our work and partly through other people's work who have also been pushing a more body-centered understanding of magic, understanding that we're working through this and from this point, rather than it just happens to be like the meat sack. It's just a term I hate so much because the body is so incredible.
Yeah.
Like my background is as a dancer before it became whatever it is I do now in Scarlet Imprint, and which is like 100 jobs. But I approached magic. I came into magic from a background non-magical in a way. Like I had experience in sort of some Eastern modalities like Qigong and so on, but and Buto dance. Yeah, what am I talking about? I just wanted to say I kind of approached it from a different angle and found that everybody was stuck in their heads and arguing over people's words, and the words are really the least important thing. They're really what you kind of try to drag out of the dream state or the magical state when you're in ritual, or when you're possessed, or you're incorporating, as like the word Gordon uses for possession. Trying to get across that barrier, bringing something out of that space that you can communicate, that kind of serves as an anchor, or even a kind of, something you bring that can allow you access again. And so words are that, if they're successful, they're not about showing off how clever you are or how accomplished you are. That's really that's between you and your soul, really. That has like fuck all to do with what we're talking about. Seems the least interesting thing of magic.
Something I did want to.
Full stop.
I hate to keep going back, I guess, to this whole flow state thing. It's just it does intrigue me. But
You're muted.
I was even like kind of looking at it like I was saying it to Sabrina too when I was on her show 2 days ago, that like even with David Lynch and his transcendental meditation, the way he explains it and how he says what he would get out of it, I do wonder, like, like, is it that flow state that like you end up like getting those ideas? Like when you're, can you get problem they can't hear me? Does that ever happen to you? Like when you're out doing your stuff, riding your bike, doing your things, will like ideas pop into your head that you go with? I don't think they can hear me.
Yeah, they can't hear you.
Sorry, Nick, you muted. Can't hear a thing.
You might have to leave and come back. This is so weird. This isn't the last guest we had.
Can you hear the rest of us there, Peter? Can you hear any of us? Can you guys hear us?
Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
You might have to drop out and come back. Yeah.
I can hear that.
I can't hear you. Idea.
We're gonna throw it up on the screen too. I'll make it.
Well, in the meantime, I'm reminded of an expression that I know from Tai Chi, but I'm sure it's available more broadly, and certainly it's applicable more broadly. The idea that the way you do one thing is how you do everything, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, like, putting magic into what seems like even mundane weightlifting, or putting a quality mindset into the things you do, or enabling the flow state into washing dishes. It kind of builds on itself, right?
Nice. Yeah, Ethan, I completely agree. Kung Fu, right? Kung Fu, Gung Fu, the term actually means mastery through time. Right. And so it's like you don't just have Kung Fu in your like wushu or martial practice. You have Kung Fu in everything you do, like washing dishes, figuring out how to do gardening, anything you do at all times through mastery is, Kung Fu. That's exactly. And that's magic. And that's the difference between, like, for some reason, the West seemed to like separate things, where the East integrates their embodied practice with their magical practice.
Yeah.
Much
more. We like to distinguish and separate things in the West a lot more.
Yeah. And I think the flow state is exactly what you're getting into when you're doing your ceremonial magic. I find that with, I've studied Chinese martial arts for like 20 years now. And it's one of those things where I think there is no difference between my, my Kung Fu practice and my magical practice. Obviously there's differences, in the way you go about it. But as I perform, like, say, Hung Gar, your Southern style of Shaolin stuff, it's like you have an opening. You're saluting each corner's, east, south, northwest, and you're doing a certain breathing practice. Your organs are becoming alive as then you are taking on the profile and the orientation of certain animals as you go through these things. So it's I'm continually trying to teach my students, because it's like my students, because I teach during the day, I do private lessons with all sorts of martial arts, but the Kung Fu is embedded in this. I do teach Hung Gar, yeah. Cool. And it's interesting is that my students, even though they don't know it, they're becoming warrior magicians, even though they're thinking they're just learning. They're just learning martial arts. It's like, well, no, not really. I'm integrating the middle path and these different paths like into your body. You can't actually help it, because it's like it becomes everything you do. And then back to the Tai Chi thing, it's like Tai Chi is philosophy in action. It is everything. All the Tai Chi practice is embodied within the philosophy itself.
Well said.
Yeah.
I guess now, since you guys can hear me, I had wanted to ask before you lost connection. I know we were talking about the flow state and stuff. Now, I mentioned David Lynch earlier, and I dig into his stuff, and he would talk about transcendental meditation, and he would talk about how he would go to that state and you would get ideas almost. So, that's where, there's, I guess, tapping into something. Would you say that maybe like sometimes like that would be the same thing, like when you're doing like your physical stuff, like when you're riding your bike, could you find yourself kind of like in that state, and then all of a sudden an idea pops into your head and you end up going with it when you get home, or anything like that?
Generally, it's emptiness rather than something popping in. I think that what Lynch is doing is creating really one of the most important things, which is creating a feedback loop between the unconscious and the conscious mind, if you want to use those terms. So he's finding something in dream, and then he's bringing it out of the dream, and he's developing it, and then he's going back and it's continuing to build on itself. And you see that with the work of successful magicians. So if you look at someone like Andrew Chumley, not a huge fan of his work, but what he did very effectively was he was able to create a set of feedback loops with his unconscious and build an entire world out of it in the way that Lynch did.
I've got a question actually around the flow state. Peter, I love your writing. So beautiful and lyrical. I was just curious what your writing process is like and how the flow state factors into that for you, if it does.
Sure. Well, writing is hell. It's impossible. It's a completely impossible task. It has no financial reward.
Everybody says that. Everybody.
It's obsessive, compulsive, maddening. The way my process works is I'll often get an image or a line will come through to me, and then I'll develop from that. So very often I'll I work with I'll work with a moleskin, and I'll constantly be jotting notes and pieces in that, and I'll have sentences and fragments, and then I'll bring them all together, and things will emerge from that. But my process, is I pursue those things which are interesting to me, and I return to. I begin with inspiration, and I return to cortex. I return to the original sources of everything I possibly can. I spend a lot of time on work. like a preposterous amount of time. And I'm not the only writer that has this problem. So I've been writing a piece for Substack for about a month and a half now, which has probably cost me several £100 in terms of like books that I've had to order, down, hours of pointless research. I've read.
Yeah, for Substack.
For Substack, I've read.
Yeah.
Read all of the biographies of Malcolm Lowry. I've read all of his novels, and about this much will actually appear in the text, because what you find with writing is that the writers that are interesting, each word is holographic, and so the weight and the information that's behind the word, if you've done the work, is still available there as a term for the reader to access. So
like a folding it in.
So it's a constant folding in. Sometimes my process is very easy and I can write very fluidly and produce material pretty quickly. But generally, for me, a good writing session would be I have 4 hours of writing in me before I'm done. Like that's the maximum that I can do in a single session generally, and then I can't. I generally can't get more than that out during a day. But yeah, writing it's an obsessive madness with
little reward.
With the reward is the work, and the reward is what you can.
Well, it's beautiful to read despite the hardship that goes into it.
Yeah, that's
Spoken.
nice. Just a little quick thing is that Alan Moore actually says that exact same thing about ideas and how to write, is that he starts with an idea, and then from that idea it gets a sentence down, and then all of a sudden it starts to expand itself forward, and then so.
Yeah. And if it doesn't, then it's not a thing. I mean, you never know. When you start off, it could be a sentence, it could be a paragraph, it could be a chapter, it could be a book, it could be anything. So it all, you just have to keep writing things down. I mean, the other critical thing is that, like, when you have an idea, you have to write it down. Otherwise, it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. I pick up my phone and all of a sudden I just yell into it, and I'm like, "Please don't forget. You need to remember for me." Okay, put it down.
One of the interesting things I've found with the occult genre is that a lot of books in the same sort of field are all referencing back to the same materials, but then there's that one author who's just referencing stuff that is completely off of the wall, and you have to look up his references just to figure out where his head is at when he's talking about these other things. We've been noticing that a lot with Crowley in 777. He's citing all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's got this citation that's, just completely left field. Have you ever found any really interesting gems from these occult authors that you never would have found without their sort of special way of looking at the world?
Well, first, what I really love about Crowley is that he has a Renaissance man approach. So he assumes that the magician will be a fully rounded individual with an understanding of science, art, literature, like at the cutting edge of the day. The problem is when people get trapped in the idea that they simply have to read the text that Crowley read, because very often you find that they're completely out of date, they're full of erroneous information, and they just trap you in a back eddy because they haven't moved on. So I like to try and encourage people to read more widely outside of the occult. It's very common for me to find people who have a phenomenal occult library, but they read nothing else outside of that, and that results in very, very stunted human beings. The game of magic is not to produce stunted human beings.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I should say that's beautiful because even in Crowley, it's interesting how many people say they've read Crowley and then don't realize in the beginning, Crowley always gives you, read all these books before you even start the path, right? About anatomy, about philosophy, about the classics. And then it's like people just throw that part away and then go instantly into to the meditation, pranayama, and then like they try to perform ceremony. And as Crowley states it, it's like you need to first understand that any of your visions or anything that you have in these states are actually hogwash, and you need to think objectively about these things. Write them down, understand that they are part of your journey, but that's how we get obsession. That's how all of a sudden we go crazy and you get the wanderers lost in the desert.
Yeah, that is something from my own experience. And I'm not knocking, like, I guess the whole order, just my experience when I was in the OTO. I thought it was kind of weird how everybody just basically just like read Crowley's work and that was it.
Yeah.
I was like, you don't read anybody else's stuff. I don't know. I was just like, you got to hear somebody else's opinion or other things, or I don't know. And one thing that I thought was really, and myself included, I was part of this too until, like, until I just started having weird magical experiences. I really didn't look at like a lot of the broader things, like the physiology and other stuff that I do think is my opinion. I keep saying it. Maybe you guys will be a little bit different on this. Almost anybody I've asked that's been on the show, I say I do think Aleister Crowley was writing about the eyeballs and the brains in certain ways, or he was pointing to it. A lot of people don't agree with me on that, but I do think physiology is possibly in his work. A lot of the Gnostic saints are other people that he even was influenced by. If you read their stuff, they're drawing eyeballs and brains. Robert Flood, even Johannes Kepler, and he's drawing eyeballs. I mean, you have, I do think when you start looking at people in the Renaissance, they incorporated so many different things just besides what we're just saying here now. And I feel like that has been lost, like, hugely. Yeah. I don't know what happened. Was there like a schism where all of a sudden just the occult and magic was just real easy and they forgot about everything else? I don't know. But I do think like what you said, that was a real good point. All that stuff is like kind of left out.
Yep, because nowadays... Oh, sorry.
Education's collapsed, so people are starting from a much lower base. When you look at Crowley, he was like an Oxford graduate. He was, he was genius level. But the problem with Crowley is, as a result of him being at a genius level and producing this material, it's very likely that if you're in a structure like OTO, that you will simply attempt to reproduce what it meant to be Crowley, and you end up with a lot of people who are lesser versions of that. Obviously, I'm not throwing shade at the entire OTO, but it's one of the traps that people fall into is they end up trying to replicate the master, and we're no longer there. Like, we're in a completely different world, and we have such a breadth of information which is available to us, and the ability to read and access books. So let's even just look at magic. So when I started studying magic, the internet wasn't really a thing. Like, it wasn't functioning. So the way that you got books on magic was you went into suspicious secondhand bookshops and you asked to look at the books that were hidden behind the shelf and see if they'd hand them to you. And you bought stuff widely at random because you were unable to get hold of the specific text you were looking for. So you ended up with quite an eclectic reading. You couldn't go, I'm just going to read Crowley. You go, they have an Ouspensky paper back in. There's nothing else. Well, I'll read some Ouspensky. They have some Gurdjieff. I'll read some Gurdjieff.
Whatever they had, you were like,
I suppose I'll have to read some fucking Dion Fortune. I mean, it's,
mystical Kabbalah.
Yeah. So you ended up getting this kind of bizarre, broad, kaleidoscopic kind of like introduction to it, and also because you didn't have such access to the material, it meant that you would work with an individual book for longer. And perhaps the best exponent for that would be Jake Stratton Kent, and the way that he spent decades just working with various bits of the true grimoire, various bits of Grimoire Verum, and because of the limitations that had been imposed upon him, he was able to gain a lot more from the text than someone who was simply going, this week I'm a Vajrayana Buddhist, this week I'm a yoga practitioner.
Or just collecting all the grimoires and obsessively. I mean, there is use in that. It's just when you're working, it really helps to be so focused on the thing you're doing and not like just collect.
Yeah. So you're saying is magic's not just Pokemon cards? You're not just gotta catch them all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I find that. Oh, sorry, Brennan. So sorry, Peter.
No, Jim, go.
I found that point very profound because I've heard you, Peter, speak on like the creation of books as sort of like an art practice and it's a physicality, it's physical media. It's in the Rahu and the dragon. It's not in the Ketu in the digital or in the subtle. And so I think it's profound in the sense that in my experience, like I'm a Vajrayana Buddhist. I don't think you knew that, and when you said it, but as a tantric, I just feel like that is the true sort of praxis of sadhana, is to like really focus on the one mandala that you're doing and not be tempted by all the other empowerments practices. But I also like to, as you mentioned earlier, like keep your mind open, like read Left Hand Path text, read your texts on Lucifer, read the works on Babylon, because it's very similar. I'm not saying it's the same, but there is a similar current. I think that all of magic, quote unquote, the whole canon touches on at least a little bit. So I had actually an interesting, I hope it's interesting, a follow-up to something we discussed earlier, which was the mountain. So in the Lucifer Praxis book, you refer to sort of the Northwest Semitic, but you also refer to other kinds of regional ideas in the North, in that sort of area, of the mountain gods, or of the mountain god, maybe, I don't know, you can, or the mountain angel, maybe that's a better way to say it. So I wanted to know, like, how do you sort of identify Lucifer living in the UK? If you do you see him as sort of a mountain god, or apotheosis of like mountain gods? This is a very interesting idea in Tantra, is like the sort of worldly Bhairava, or the worldly king, can then raise himself up to become the pinnacle of the mountain of the mandala. So I wonder if you see Lucifer in a similar way, like a sort of impulse, as Gordon said, but I would call it a current myself, but as sort of like a rising force to that can like appear on the carnal ground. I know that's not your language, but and then arise to the sort of higher than heaven, maybe you could say.
Sure. I gave a lecture this year at Occulture, last year, Occulture, which I'll upload soon, which will answer this question more broadly, talking about how I orientate my work in the land. One thing I did when I wrote Praxis was, although it's a personal book, I didn't want to over-determine it for people and bring in too much of my own personal experience. I wanted to keep it open. So locating Lucifer in England is quite easy for me. Firstly, because this Praxis shows the real explosion and the modern form of Lucifer that we have emerged firstly in 1667 with the publication of Paradise Lost, and then with the actions of the French Revolution in 1789, and the modern form of Lucifer coming forth from these influences, which then informed the English line of prophecy in the Romantic poets. So the Romantic poets continued the process that you find in the Bible, but they were writing from the other side of it. So Shelley in particular, but also Byron, Blake, all of had their inputs in it, and they were dealing with an England that they were seeing as the new seat of prophecy. So they were transposing the biblical landscape onto the English landscape. You see that with and did those feet. Blake's poem Jerusalem, where he asks and did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's mountains green. So he's taking the biblical Jerusalem and he's translating it into England, and he's turning England into the place where the new revelation will appear. And so the question I asked after that in my Occulture talk was, well, if Jerusalem can be transposed to England, then so too can the shadow of Jerusalem. So the other side of it, the Luciferian side of it, can also be found in the English landscape.
Fallen angels.
And the fallen angels, when you see them in the biblical lands, are very much associated with the Bronze Age and Stone Age monuments. So the dolmen in particular, the houses of the spirits, the houses of the ancient and mighty dead. So where I live in Cornwall is a giant Bronze and Stone Age graveyard. I mean, it's the number of tombs and structures and settlements we have here, standing stones, circles, is off the charts. So we live in a place which has been associated with the fallen angels as the people who try to tell new stories about a land whose stories have been forgotten. So the very earliest people who lived here, that in the Stone Age, we don't know their stories, but we have their homes, we have them, and we have them on mountaintops. So there's a whole very sacred part of Cornwall called Balerion that I've written about before, which is mainly made out of granite. And because it's made out of granite, which is a very hard rock, it means that a lot of these monuments have survived. So it's possible for me to work in the landscape on mountains with the homes and the beings of the mighty dead
and the currents
and the currents of the earth. So my Lucifer work is transposed into the landscape that I'm embedded in.
That's fascinating. I have a question. So do you have the idea? So the idea of Lucifer, and especially in Milton being the fallen one, but also being synonymous with the snake, and as that idea of giving Eve the apple and that self-awakening. So it doesn't have to be the idea of giving Eve the apple and that means she, passed sin along and the whole exoteric variation of the Bible and that kind of thing. It comes to me that that Lucifer's technology kind of idea, that it gave us self-consciousness. It gave us the ability to see good and evil and become gods ourselves. And so is that one of those things where your understanding of that Luciferic current, especially in the place that you're in, gives you the ability to then tap into the currents of the land so you can remember this style of mythology and then put it into your work and then give it to the masses? And that's the idea of Prometheus grabbing the fire from the gods and bringing it to the people, and that Promethean Luciferian interconnection comparison?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason I kept things as open as I did in praxis is because America is very much the child of England. So I don't know all of your heritages, but many of you will have come from England. Like you are our future, like translocated into America, and you have that task of trying to work out where this goes. Where it goes for you, what it means in your disputed landscape. How you reclaim and work with that, and those are questions for individual magicians in individual places. So I've already had people writing to me saying, so I got Lucifer Praxis, and the first thing I did was I went to Serpent Mound and read it as Serpent Mound, because that's their sacred landscape that they're trying to understand, and they're trying to understand these stories through. Because we're in a constant process of these things being written and overwritten and changed and rechanged, and it isn't a question of like going, oh my god, everything's cultural appropriation, we can't say anything, we can't do anything as moderns, we can't do anything because we are white. This is bullshit. The important thing is that people take these general principles and they apply them to the place that they're in, and they apply them to the culture that they're in, and they continue to transform them.
I think
that's
gives
beautiful.
A mythic access to landscapes whose people are gone, and that we have, like in England, the Romans already killed all the Druids. We have no continuity with our own pagan traditions. So because the Bible then later overwrote everything, and so the stones here, or the sacred landscape here, are associated with like the devil or fairies or giants. And there's this parallel then between that and the fallen angels in the world in the Bible, the giants and the Nephilim and so on.
Yeah.
So you're able to transpose that and use that mythically to access what's hidden in the landscape here, and to also like not to deny the Christian heritage we have, because it's a very important part of the West and Cornwall as well, but to go beyond that, to go further, to take it further, because I think that the Anglican Church is meaningless now. It doesn't have any values at all. So, and especially like I don't think Christianity is bad. My background is Catholic. My parents and family are Catholic. But to go beyond that, I don't think we are in opposition to this. I think that it's just that Lucifer is something being born. It's a new revelation. It's something coming through. It's not the devil from the Bible, and Praxis talks a little about this. It's more as though what comes out is not just the bad, but like everything that was suppressed, all of the history, and so we can find a way into that and find a we are navigating a different world. I mean, it's a very different world from the Christian world. It's a very different world from Crowley's world, even 100 years ago. So we're looking towards the future. We're not like thinking about like 20 years ago or even 10 years. Things are going to change so much in the coming decades very quickly because of AI and all the other changes happening in the world. So it's really that Lucifer offers a way to think consciously about how we use technology, for instance, how we ethically approach what we do. Lucifer is a current which like puts our consciousness into this position where, or if we are going to be as magicians conscious about what we do in the world and what the world is in our relation to it, there is a sort of a moral or an ethical thing that goes with that as well, like an obligation to rethink how we are in relation to everyone and everything, all the other beings and spirit.
I'm going to follow that up just because oh, sorry, I apologize.
No.
I think that's incredibly interesting and beautifully said, simply because this is something that we talk a lot about in our group show, which is called The Grey Lodge, which Matt and I obviously are co-hosts on. The geo-ontological relationality and sort of looking at these karmic connections with each other, but also with the landscape on which we arise, rather than saying it's specifically racial. And I think this goes very much to what Peter is saying. He's saying, like, yeah, I agree. Cultural appropriation is bullshit, because you where you arise in your consciousness matters a lot more than the bioessentiality, in my opinion. So, and I think that even where you're born, because a lot of Americans, like I live in Canada, but I've lived all over the US and Canada. So for me, where you're born might determine something, but it's where you really come into your more fullness as a magician. Like, where are you first having Sephirotic experiences or magical experiences or Merkaba journey experiences or experiencing the Dakinis? Like I know you said, Alkisis, that you dance. So I just thought, well, that's so interesting, obviously. And then also I want to sort of ask about the post-Christian landscape, because I think this is really interesting. And I think this touches a lot on my own work and then our group work of Aeon of the Daughter, because I've always said it's co-synchronous. I agree with Frederick Chad that it's co-synchronous with the Aeon of the Sun. So there's no true tension between them, but it's also looking at like a progressive, not necessarily political, maybe not political at all, but it's looking at a progressive view of American, I'm using American magic, but maybe magic just in toto. So if you want to respond to that, like, how do you see I mean, I think you spoke on it, but the tensions of the sort of reactionary magical community that would say, oh, we hate Christianity because we have daddy issues or whatever it is. Like I was born Catholic. I have no problem with Christianity myself. I'm not going to be Christian, but that's, my choice. And so I just think that there is a tension, but I think it's easily resolved for me in practice of Kabbalah. So Kabbalah for me has sort of reunified my whole orientation, maybe my whole view to magic, in saying that, yeah, okay, maybe if you want to call it Hashem, you want to call it God, you want to call it Jesus, like all these different ways to map it on the tree, that's fine. It's all reconcilable if you understand, if you're, high IQ enough. And so I just find like what you're saying very important and very Aeonic and very beautiful. So I don't know if there's a question in there, but if you're welcome to respond or not in any way that you want.
Sure. I think one of the problems is that all of the broadly left-hand path approaches have been oppositional, and my feeling with these is that if you're Christian and you're coming out of Christianity, then you can perform a single black mass, but if you spend your time repeating that transgression over and over again, you're just trapping yourself in another silly game. And I think that's what's happened very much in America because of the influence of sort of LaVeyan Satanism. It's been a very reactionary, fuck you, mum and dad, sticking your fingers up at the establishment kind of like approach. and ultimately it's childish. It doesn't get you very far. Like as an initial reaction, I'm not going to throw it. I'm not going to throw it away. And I think people can gain something from that initial tension. But there's a more mature adult way to approach this, and I've been really gratified to find I've got quite a few Christian readers of my Lucifer material, and quite a few recovering Christian readers of my Lucifer material, because it shows them a Bible that they haven't necessarily read when they were in their small world churches. Like they haven't really understood the world and the text that was being described. Now we're in a kind of weird position because in England we don't have Christianity anymore. Like we're in a stage where the church has completely collapsed. Like people do not go to church here. And I'm not sure whether Americans fully understand this. Like it's such a minority pursuit. There's a new rise in Christianity. Like there's a street Christianity which is coming up now at the moment. But whether I doubt that will get beyond a very small phase here. People have just gone past that. Whereas in America, things are quite different. So I'm seeing a lot of chatter on pagan and occult forums when not forums, but like Substack notes and things with people talking about the rise of Christian nationalism and the threats that Christianity poses in America. And I don't really know how to interpret that because I'm not on the ground. It's very difficult for me to understand what the reality of that looks like to people. And I know that that's going to be very different from if you're living on the West Coast or if you're living in the Bible Belt. I mean, these are going to be very, very different places in terms of how you interact with your fellow Americans who happen to be Christians. But I think that the stronger position that I'm trying to advance in practice is we're post-Christian and not anti-Christian. And I think if we can get that message across to people, they can move through Christianity to a more constructive position, then we can probably find common ground with a lot of these people, and not simply try to reassure ourselves of our own identities by defining ourselves in opposition to,
or allowing us to be defined in that way.
Or allowing us or trapping us in that kind of silliness where we end up like the Satanic Temple, thinking it's hilarious to call abortion human sacrifice, and then wonder why it blows up for people who are running magic shops in quiet parts of America.
I think it's also important. Sorry to interrupt. I know Jin wanted to say something, but no, it just went. Sorry, carry on. I was going to add something, but yeah.
Oh, please. I mean, everything. It's like amazingly generative conversation. Just one of our co-hosts from the Grey Lodge, he was supposed to be on. He had a family thing come up. So he has a really great question. And I think Peter kind of touched on it, but we'll see, let's see. I'll read his question and then either of you can address it. You address the need to liberate your practice from the eschatological confines of Christian myth, but nonetheless include references to the day of judgment in your curses, for example. This points to a lingering tension. At this point in your life, do you view this as a stumbling block or as a generative source of creativity and play?
So we've been handed an apocalyptic script by Christianity that tends to cascade through things. And I think it's very dangerous. And one of the reasons that I spend a lot of time looking at, like, Revelation, for example, as a text, beginning in the Red Goddess, but as I mature, going through my entire corpus, is because I think that we can take that apart. I think we can prevent them using it in a negative way to trap us in a way that leads to outcomes which end with the fatalistic outcomes, which end with the destruction of humanity, with born again Christians having control of the nuclear bomb, having control of with the Collins elite, if that's a group of UFO disclosure, and the way that we interact with UAP. I think there are smart ways that we can undo it, but we're all living in our personal apocalypses as well. I mean, we're all hurtling towards death. So that's something
Bodily
that
death.
you know. This is something that we have to confront as well as occultists. And I think that the apocalypse can be used to think through that. The death meditation, I think, is one of the critical parts of that practice.
Right. In a lot of ways, I see what you're saying. It's like the fear of death has led these, these three forces against each other in opposition. You've got Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, and it's all sort of predicated on the individual's fear of what's to come after. And really, if consciousness can go into the body, then consciousness can go out of the body. So what are we talking about here? You know?
It flows. Yeah.
Right. So are we basing all of these political conflicts off of these stories, or have we been co-opted by these stories about maybe imposing a little fear of death into people and created much more death and destruction?
Well, they say that the fear of death is actually important, is that if we can fear, we have to have a little fear of the unknown so we can understand how to then walk into it without the fear, because we can't be a hero without first understanding the fear that we have of that darkness. You know, it's the idea of the Bushido code, where you wake up every morning and say, today is the day to die. And you walk into the world knowing that I will die today. And even if that's a symbolic understanding of what death means to us, or if it's that I'm going to protect my master or my wife or my family from these unknown aspects of things, I need to have a little fear. It's like every time I go on stage, not that I go on stage that much anymore, or do we do a live stream, or you're going out there and giving a talk or whatever it is, you have that little inkling of fear. And it's like, that leads to courage, and then that courage leads us to becoming superhuman in our own way. That's how I like to. But I do agree that they want us to be, theys want us to be, and not those kind of theys, but they wants us to be afraid of death. And if it's easier to create than the Brian Johnsons of the world, right? That character who's trying to defy death, which is nonsensical, and then he wants to live stream his fucking stupid psychedelic journeys when technically all he needs to do is shut the lights off, take a candle, take a heroic dose and throw on lateralis, and then all of a sudden you have this internal feeling of what the true expansiveness of going into the mystery school and coming out alive is, and then we can truly be alive. That's my soapbox. That's
one thing that we were talking about even before starting the recording here was that in Brazil there is a lot of openness to a lot of these topics that we are talking about, like the esotericism, or even what you guys were saying about the post-Christian. Because what happened here is you have all the Catholics from Portugal and, you know, the other European places, but especially Portugal. Then you had the Africans coming with all their heritage and the natives here. And we kind of just mixed up everything, and we had to make sense of it. So in the end, we have people that would, you know, get all the, let's say the African and the native practices, kind of mesh them, syncretize them, but then add like Jesus in the middle as well. You know, somehow there's some saints and Jesus there as well. Or the guys like something that actually started back in France with Kardec, so like a spiritism that didn't got extremely popular there, like in Europe in general. But in Brazil, it kind of like exploded, and then a lot of other things out of it afterwards as well. Because again, he kind of got Christianity, he understood it. He went to the East to learn more, and then he's like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, people reincarnate and stuff. Yeah, cool. Okay, there's not like just this thing where you wait forever until the return and so on. So he kind of like updated the knowledge, and then people, okay, cool. This is more like it, but he still uses the Bible and whatever. So it's kind of like what you're talking about, this kind of post Christianity. And another thing that was in my mind was, again, this idea of, okay, there's going to be an apocalypse, everything's going to end and so on. And well, by coincidence, right, you have 22 chapters and 22 major arcana, and a lot of the chapters are basically the 22 arcana being like displayed, but that's for another thing. And what you have there is, okay, everything is going to end, and sure, it is that era, because the cycles continue. That era that they're talking about is going to end eventually, and then a new one comes up. That's like the Antichrist, the one that's going to end the previous Messiah or whatever, and then another one comes up, and it goes again and again and again and again. But if you don't see it like that, like you guys are saying, it becomes just this fearful experience where you cannot, you don't know what to do, and then you have people that can capitalize on that which they do a lot of times. Like you have guys saying, "Oh, tomorrow's gonna be the latest day," and then everybody sells their shit and goes live with them and build an ark and whatever. Like people still do this to this day. Like I saw the other day on Twitter or whatever. So again, it's just this myth that gets created, and like you guys were saying as well before, like if you don't get hold of that, then you're just living the myth of some people that lived in the desert 2,000 years ago, and you're still living that, but you're like out of there. You are somewhere in America, somewhere in Japan, whatever, and you're still living that story. Like it's over. Come on, create your own. Like, and I guess writing is and reading books, like consuming it and creating. It's the excellent skill for that, because you have to know how to create the story and to put it out there. So that's pretty nice.
And I think
cyclical
also,
time versus linear time.
Yes. Can I just say something? I wanted to say, like, Matt, I totally agree, like, that you can't rationalize the spirit world. I know people that, like, have Jesus and Babylon both in their lives. It's not our job as humans to rationalize the spirit world. It's all there. Jesus is real for many people. For me, I never felt that connection. I was always oriented toward the feminine, and unfortunately as a child Mary never made her epiphany to me, so I ended up going the other way. But yeah, you can't rationalize the spirit world. It's all real, as I think, who was it that said that recently on one UAP thing, like demons, angels, everything's out there, and what you encounter will be largely because of where your consciousness is, how your consciousness is oriented in a particular moment in our incarnation.
Mm-hmm.
So the consciousness is not limited, but our incarnation is limited. I also wanted to mention something when Brandon was talking about fear. It was very good. I totally agree about that. Fear is really important. Everything Peter does to enter flow state, for me, it puts me in a fear state. I couldn't ride a bike until I met Peter, and then he, like 2 weeks after trying to teach me how to ride, took me to the Alps and sent me down a black, and it was like, he was just basically, if you fall off, you'll die, so don't fall off, just let it roll. And that was my fear/flow state. And it's been a huge part of everything I do, the same as like going in the sea. For me, that's like scary. And for Peter, it's the ocean is his world. The ocean created him. For me, I have to, the smallest thing, just because of my physiology, I can't cope with it. And there's a spirit I've had a long ongoing relationship with, but it's really comes to the nature of that relationship is a series of nightmares, essentially, in which I have to confront intensely frightening death kind of experiences. And the spirit will keep giving me these, and I recognize the signature in it. They're a particular watery signature that I recognize this spirit by, that the whole dream experience itself is me being immersed in the world that the spirit has given me for the dream. And they're always to do with confronting fear. And so there have been several sort of nightmare initiations, let's say, where I have to keep going through it until I'm able to confront that fear. And then everything just transforms in that moment when I can steady myself and become lucid in the dream and recognize what it is. Then everything changes. And the other thing I wanted to say, getting back to what Jin and I think Nick was saying about eschatology and end times and relationship of this to, I'm very interested in the approach that D.H. Lawrence took in his book Apocalypse to Revelation, which is interesting to parallel with Crowley's, which is kind of a similar time. And he looked at it and he said that it's the woman holding the cup that walks out of Revelation. The one interesting thing, the life that goes beyond it. It's the woman holding the cup, Babylon. So Crowley's Babylon is one aspect of that divine, suppressed, demonized feminine, sacred feminine. And it's our feminine in the West, which is where I see that parallel with the Vajrayana tradition, that's demonic, but it's not demonic, because it's actually our way through our history, our way through our karma, is to confront who she is, which is what this sort of work of excavation that Peter and I have done with Babylon since the Red Goddess and through the essays collected in the Brazen Vessel and various talks and things we've given. And there's a different eschatology with Babylon. If you take it back to her origins in the Near and Middle East and the earliest arising of this figure with Inanna Ishtar, she returns from her underworld journey. She is the firstborn of the dead in recorded history. It's not Jesus that comes back and defies death. It's actually Inanna Ishtar. And she's both a woman and a goddess. She's the priestess, she's the Nugig, she's the taboo woman or the sacred woman. And this return from the underworld is more like the female erotic. There's like an erotic feminine way of seeing eschatology, which is countless cycles. As you said, cyclic time rather than linear time that just ends and you fall off the cliff. It's like, yeah, the body dies, but the spirit goes on and things just keep, we are recycled. Like, I see our matter as absolutely sacred and intertwined with spirit. There's no difference. But we're just particles. We're the water that makes our body was born out of stars which died billions of years ago. We are stars. We are made of this stuff. This is our consciousness. Water is one unified field that light and beauty and spirit exists and travels through and speaks to us through. So following Babylon out of Revelation is one way to get beyond that, the climactic, cutoff of the sort of the male sexual response that is cut, sort of like has been written into the. And anyway, I think male sexuality is completely misunderstood, but I think that this idea that things just end is so linear, and I think the feminine brings back this sense that we just go round, the cycle goes again, our bodies are reconfigured as other things. I'm no longer frightened of dying because it's just the body that ends, and my energy is already more than my body can bear. So I just hope that when I come back next time, I will be hench or whatever. I will be, I lift, but I'm still not strong enough for what I have to do in the world. And yeah, I totally know that things keep going. But just there were so many interesting points you made, and I just wanted to touch each of those that you had said. So thank you.
That was really beautiful. Sorry, I know I said I was going to be quiet for a little while. I have to follow up with something. Is that I think it's really profound because when I spoke to Gregory Peters with Solar Exile, the other brother who wrote in the question, we talked a little bit about the etymology of the word tantra, and a lot of Western practitioners aren't super familiar. They're more like they know tantara, meaning like to weave beyond the stars. But if you know, because I'm a Tibetan Buddhist, we call it Tantra, Tantara, meaning that it is actually the goddess Tara, whose name means star. So I always thought that so interesting because obviously Anana Ishtar, there is like a stellar component. We would say that she's self-combusting. Now, what does that exactly mean? Well, you have to figure that out for yourself. But I just think that's really beautiful because, yeah, we are made of stars. We are luminous and massless and infinite in our capacities. And I think that what Tantra has taught me, maybe the most fundamentally, is yes, the wisdom exists as a method to get there. And it doesn't really belong to anyone. Like she doesn't belong to anyone, especially for our conception. She's post-gnostic, post-conceptual. She is not made of aggregates. She is not made of our perceptions. So I think very much it coincides exactly with what you said. And so I just want to follow up with an actual question. I apologize. I know I'm kind of a meanderer. What is the relationship with Lucifer and Babylon? And how would you sort of reconcile it or codify it?
We just answered that question the other day.
I'll let you do it using the revelation. It's probably the best start, isn't it?
It's the way I configure it in my head to try to make sense of what we've got in the tradition is that if you look at Revelation, Babylon is described as the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. The harlots are, well, it's related to idolatry. Both harlotry and the idea of abominations are like idols and idolatry and the sort of false religions and so on. But the harlots are also equivalent to the women who mate with the angels in the Enochic literature, because they're exogamously, having relationship with the angels and creating abominations. The abominations they create are the Nephilim and the giants. And so the spirit tradition that we inherit in the West, the demonological tradition, the giants are not the giants. The spirits are understood as the ghosts of the dead giants and Nephilim. So, if you think that our spirit tradition that Lucifer is the head of are like the progeny of these mortal women with the angelic realm, with the heavenly realm, it means that there's something born both of the earth, but also that they're sired by the heavens. And I see this relationship, therefore, with Babylon and Lucifer as that they are both, you can relate both of them to the morning star, to Venus. And I've also spoken a lot about how, I give a talk about how there are a lot of astral configurations which are related, and stars which are related to Babylon. So they're not limited. It's not like some clear identity, like she is Venus and Lucifer is Venus. It's not that at all. It's that these currents, these energies or forces have drawn from these astral configurations or beings, heavenly beings, what they are, and that there's a sort of relationship. They are oriented towards the future. There's she's kind of the head of it. She's like the source of everything. She's the mother of these things. But Lucifer himself is also like the underworld, the first to die, the king in the underworld. Does this make any sense? Yeah, and the underworld and the skies are also the same. That it's the other world because you have this parallel between the chthonic and the heavenly, always this relationship. But as I said earlier, I try not to rationalize too much. It's just that when you look at Revelation, this beautiful language, like the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth, kind of gives you that key to fit both Babylon and the sort of our demonological tradition in a post-Christian interpretation where we can actually take it forwards. And yeah, that's kind of how I do it in my head. Yeah.
She is the mother of the Leela. That is absolutely true. It's her illusion, her world.
Yeah.
She decides who she wants to play. So absolutely. And so thank you so much for that answer.
Yeah, question is, have you guys read Promethea by Alan Moore?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Long time ago. Nice.
Yeah,
and the reason I bring it up is because of it's almost exact, like the volume 3, the last volume is exactly just everything we're talking about right now with the eschatology and Babylon, and even about what's going on in culture today and where we're heading. Is that so? How Alan Moore puts it is that Babylon sits in Banah, right, and that's when, if I remember right, and I could be wrong, as Promethea, or as Sophie is climbing up the tree and being Promethea, she is witnessing. She runs into John Dee and she sees everybody on the cubes, and then all of a sudden she has this experience as she interacts with Promethea, the true ascent of Promethea, and then she sees both Babylon and Mary as the same individual, but being expressed in 2 different ways. And I highly recommend everyone here and everyone listening to go and read how Alan Moore poetically talks about beholding Mary as she is the virgin, and then beholding Babylon as the harlot and the whore, and how we have both of those aspects within us. And then Sophie, as Promethea, goes up and she, witnesses the father in Chokmah and goes into Kether and becomes all. But the thing about what Promethea is to do after she understands these aspects of Babylon and the mother is that when she comes back into the material realm of our kingdom of earth, she is to amnetize the escation. And this looks to us as if everybody is going crazy. It's like everyone's having this epileptic event. And interesting enough, once we all go through this and Promethea brings everybody back into this singular room, telling them that singular story as we are all being birthed into a new way of existing, a lot of really violent things happen during that birth, because birth has pangs and it hurts. And so it's such an interesting thing, that way we view this apocalypse or this escation is that we both start to understand that inner Babylonian harlot within us, and we start to understand that inner Mary, of that virgin that we're being birthed into. And so it's just all these things that keep coming into my mind as you're talking about how then Lucifer and this way of viewing self-awareness, because for some reason for me, I don't know why, I keep having this idea of Lucifer being the beholder and the one who helps us understand the valuation between good and evil, and how not only are the gods, but we are, I think Ike Baker said it, we are was it Jamie Paul Lamb or somebody was talking about how we are mortal gods as well as divine gods in the same breath. And so it's the only way to be born into that is to first die and have this experience of climbing up the tree as we go through it. And then a side note was when you were talking about how Jesus is real, that again, I've just been integrated, and I did take a lot of entheogenic experiences while like listening to Tool and reading Promethea at the same time and meditating on those things. But there's a scene as Promethea is experiencing Tippereth, where you get to see all the Tipperethic sun gods. And then you open up into a splash page, and it's Jesus on the cross. And, and being all like, the idea of like, well, doesn't matter if he existed. It's that he is real and more real than you or I. And this is the suffering that we all feel on a daily basis. So this is kind of a fascinating thing of like how Babylon has been so, and the idea of Lucifer has been so integrated into Satanism. And I wonder about how you guys feel about that, because I think that there's so many LARPers out there and Satanists who want to intermingle this idea of what Luciferianism is, and then the idea of what Lucifer is truly doing to our world. And then all of a sudden you get these like, it's hard for me not to like call Jason Giorgiani such a poofter, but it's the idea that he's like ruining the idea of what this Promethean fire character is supposed to truly be doing, and then telling people that philosophers shouldn't be religious and all these other things. And so it's such a very bass-ackwards world that we live in, where you get these Satanists like a Giorgiani who doesn't truly have a practice and embodied. You can see it in his reptilian face that's like, I don't understand. And then you get a wave of individuals who are following him, and then people like you who are actually seeming to be doing the good work, trying to spread the good message of what it truly means to bring upon this new technology for people to integrate their currents into this divine wave. There's a question in there. I just want to know what you think about all that.
Yeah, I've been listening to quite a lot of Giorgiani because I haven't.
He's been on a tear lately, so we've been listening.
A tear, I know.
Yeah.
Yes, isn't he?
I find it interesting how much information he brings together, but I don't recognize the story that he builds out of the material.
Yeah.
So I think he's a fascinating thinker, but like all of these trickster figures, you just have to listen in very, very carefully, because he places information. He makes all information look as if it's at the same level, when there's some information which is patently false, and there's some information which is like, is more real, and he just puts it all together, and he tells this fabulous stream of consciousness, super confident, word dropping, like genius level discourse.
Not quite.
It's fun. It's fun, and I can see how it dazzles people, and I can see how it opens doors for people.
Yeah.
So I quite like him at arm's length, but I don't agree with his conclusions.
Good.
That's kind of how I am with Jason. But there aren't many people who've done this work, is the real thing. So when I did Praxis, I sealed myself off from everything. So I didn't look at modern Luciferians. I didn't read the satanic stuff. I avoided I didn't even reread the academic text I've got. I always name drop Fairfax Snell's brilliant Satanic Feminism.
Because it covers different material.
Because it covers different material. It has a slightly different angle. And I try not to talk shit or throw shade about people who are working in the field. So I can say positive things about some of the modern Luciferians, but I think that the problem is that they're all still trying to create cults. They're all still trying to create little systems and little pyramid schemes. And here's my logo, and here's my badge, and here's my course, here's my bunch of sigils, here's my 6-part book series. And it's like, fuck off, guys. This is like, we're past that. Like, we're not playing those games anymore.
We need to be creative.
We have other things, which is why, this evening we're sitting here talking to all you guys with all your radically different experiences, because this is where it happens now. Like, it doesn't happen in a, here is my closed, spooky, satanic cult. Like, that's not the thing.
That's
like, it's open source. There is a time for privacy, and there is a time for secrecy. And I'm
we are
highly secretive. We're highly secretive individuals.
Of course.
But at the same time, there's a great opportunity for us to talk honestly amongst each other as people who've had remarkable experiences. I mean, Brandon, what you've been through with your entheogenic experiences, and I'm sure everyone here has had entheogenic experiences now, like, we've really got our hands on, like, the rocket fuel. We have more texts than Crowley could have ever dreamt of. We have more powerful tools than anyone could have dreamt of. But it's very easy for us to be divided into micro groups, squabbling over the attention economy, talking shit about one another, and trying to sell products. You know? And can we get past that, please, humans? We do not need to do that anymore.
Yeah, that's a great, nice.
I love that you said that, Peter, because it's very similar to something we spoke about. Nick had scheduled a IG occult influencer, we'll call her, and she bailed, and so we had a kind of round table, and we talked a lot about aeonic thinking and sort of the way, and Nick said, like, all these guys who are the heads of the OTO or the Temple of Set or whatever it is, they're all getting old. And it's not I'm not saying it as like a aspersive way, they are fading, and with them will fade the old aeon in a way. And so in my idea, the aeon of the daughter is that we are leaving the institutional frame, as well as perhaps also the longhouse, which is not necessarily tied to women as a whole, but just sort of like the sort of scold culture that has arisen. I think Peter has addressed this many times, that has arisen in the last like 20 years. In this way of like keeping people's consciousness. And I think that's sort of what's interesting about both Luciferianism and contemporary Satianism, is that it is about breaking conceptual frameworks. And I think, like, to respond to what Brandon said, like, for me, because I relate the Sephira to the Mahavijja, like the 10 tantric goddesses, for me, she's not fixed in any Sephira. She is all the Sephira. So when you encounter them in the Sephira, they might take a different form, or based on my perception or the whatever mythopoetic framework that I'm using. But this is the one thing where I differed from Hermetic Kabbalah, is that I never saw that it's not just Binah for me. Like, there can be a widow goddess that arises at Hokmah, for instance. Like, there are different kind of polarities that you can understand that work in each one. It's not just there are different appearance existence forms. Anyways, I apologize, but I just wanted to say.
That's Jin. I completely get your point, and I agree, especially for the idea that in every Sephira, every other Sephira is there, right? So that's the idea, the 1 and the 10 and the 10 and the all type of idea, is that it's not just this two-dimensional thing, but within everything is everything else. And I think what Alan Moore's trying to get at when he's talking about those things is that he's understanding that we need, for a general audience, because he's writing this book for fucking Vertigo or some shit, is that he needs to be able to explain this modernized grimoire to a masses of individuals. So then what you want to do is you want to use the Tree of Life as a cabinet system and then have it understood as a certain kind of archetype that is in every Sephirah. So as Sophia merges with the true Promethea, that archetype, which is become that egregore, which was a real person in that world, she merges with that so she can then come back to the world to bring on revelation. And in doing so, she walks through and then witnesses these two, the Saturnian figures, this, the Mary and the harlot and at the same time. And then that is that character's path of individuation, her own heroess's journey as she is to then go and bring upon this thing, because she has to witness every aspect as she climbs up the tree. So what I'm saying is I agree with you in that kind of way, because my girlfriend also, she's a Buddhist, practicing Buddhist. And so it's like her and I argue all the time. Where does the Buddha sit on the tree? Where do these things sit on the tree? And it's like, it's fun to do that with a loved one or a friend, but it's like, we're just sparring intellectually. So then when we bring it to the masses, we have a better way of trying to, it's like how when I teach martial arts, it's every person I am talking to has their own bodily, mental, mind experience in things. And so how I teach one person Hung Gar or Wing Chun or Tai Chi is not then how I'm going to do it to the other person, even though I still have these set systems that I'm trying to express and pull out of each individual's bodily experience in the world. Yeah.
Absolutely. And just to respond quickly, Brandon, is that I always say, like, just like David Haim-Smith, I know he gets brought up like every episode that I'm on, I apologize. But you approach the tree non-dually with bodhicitta framework and from the middle path. And like it will unfold like in the Pardes system, like the 5, that's why I like the 5 as well. So I think I agree that it's all reconcilable. But I also agree with what was said before, like you don't want to rationalize everything. Maybe that's just for like your autistic Kabbalistic practice like me, like in private, but I don't need to necessarily relate that to everyone, which I think also speaks to what Peter and Elkisi said about, teaching people the inner, outer, and secret, and how Alan Moore kind of blends, which is a very tantric conceptualization of blending inner, outer, and secret teachings and calling them maybe even different things, like saying this is a secret teaching, but it's actually an outer teaching, but you're presenting it as a secret mystery. So, I mean, I'm very familiar with the chaos magicians. They love to do this. It is what it is. Even Crowley does it a little, so.
Alan Moore is not a chaos magician, and he hates Grant Morrison just for that. I just want to make that very known.
I think that he probably borrows some ideas.
Well, of course. How can we not? How can we not? Yeah.
If we could bring it back to books for a second, as I know we're supposed to kind of wind down in just a minute. Like speaking of that difference between the secret cults doing their secret cult stuff, and then on the other end, like the total open source, I wanted to ask our lovely folks from Scarlet Imprint, like, what was your intention behind starting the press? And did you think that it was going to go along as long as it has and be so impactful? And one of the things I really love about how you guys run that is there's so many different ways to obtain the books. Whereas we see a lot of occult publishers where they only will release 50 editions bound in nice goat with the embossing. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love that stuff. But I really, really appreciate that you guys also make the digital editions super, super affordable for people, and the paperbacks as unlimited editions. And I'm just curious about that kind of original spark of creating that press, publishing your own work, and also publishing incredibly interesting other voices. And if you could just speak to that a bit, I think everyone would probably really love to hear about that.
You start.
So we started Scarlet Imprint in an occult world, which in England was really moribund. It was dying. There was nothing happening. There were no presses. The previous generation of chaos magicians were kind of winding down essentially. So there wasn't a great deal of energy in the scene, and I wanted to with the first edition of the Red Goddess, I wanted to produce a magical talismanic book that would go out into the world and change everything. Voila. And and we quickly
We didn't. We
we're-
only produced 156 because
that's all we could afford.
We could afford, but also we really didn't think
That
there would be any interest. So we wrote. We had a few people on Peter's what was it, Live Journal contact list from Live Journal days, and wrote to them individually and said we're doing this. And I think there was some online forum you opened it on. It was so small. It took ages to sell these 150 copies, and then you just howlings happened because the flat got filled with spirits. It was very strange, and we did a divination, and it had to do with the Goetia of Solomon. So we kind of went down that route and produced howlings out of that. Out of this sort of okay, what's in these old grimoires?
What is it? We were like, what
there's something there. What are people doing with
what are
with
people
books?
doing? So I knew enough contemporary practitioners to say, well, where are the books on practical magic? Where are the people who are doing things? What are the stories of people doing things?
We wanted practitioner
accounts, not an academic approach, not a here's another historical approach, but to say, what are people doing out there? Let's share our experiences. And we've always been fundamentally democratic. So although we make very nice books, it's important to us because we were students too. We were poor too. I mean, we're not rich now, but to be able to say to people, look, you can get a paperback. Just here's the information. You
not
do
to
not
limit
have to,
information.
You don't have to limit it to people who have deep pockets. To say we can change the world with a paperback book, and we can change the world with a fine edition bound in leather.
But the thing is, a fine edition will last for hundreds of years, and maybe ends up somewhere and will survive cataclysms because someone's put it somewhere very safe. Paperbacks will last a few years. Digital editions will disappear as soon as the electricity goes down. So everything, but it can have an impact in a wider. It can have a digital edition or a paperback can have a print on demand because they're available through Amazon. A lot of our books is print on demand, and so the quality is not great. It's not bad, but it's not great. But it does it can get to more people and so have a bigger reach, and that can transform people. But also, a hardback that's nicely bound might last longer. It might have a longer life. Might pass through several hands and find more people. And so it's about that approach that you can have books that work in different ways, that carry the material out into the world, and have that different relationship with the people that they come into contact with. So it was really about making, and it happened because we just grew. We didn't think we'd carry on doing it. It's just kept happening. I'm always surprised when people buy, because we also do very personal stuff. We're not trying to be everything. We're trying, books are alive, exactly. We are not trying to be the best occult publisher or any of that. We want to do something very personal, very individual, and our own, what really speaks to us, because there are so many publishers now doing those things for themselves, doing those things. So what's interesting is to, we're putting out, the next book we'll put out is a very interesting book of poetry. It will probably be bought by 200 people in the world maximum. This is as far as these things go. But I find there's something extraordinary about the writer and what his work is and what he's done. So I really feel that it's necessary to put out both something like Peter Mark Adams' Game of Saturn, which has had a huge impact on people, but also the very arcane stuff, which might only get to a few people. And it's just that it's got to be personal, and it's got to have integrity, and it's got to not be restricted in this, but you can't afford the nice edition. And and academic books are like that too. I see so many books from Brill that I wish I could afford, but it's not happening. So we are really just trying to do something which is both completely independent. We're too small to be, we're small enough to exist in the cracks, is what I'm saying. It's kind of witchcraft. You exist in the cracks between what's meant to exist, but you're allowed to. We can just about survive and function and do this thing, and then maybe it takes people. It opens up into other people's worlds in ways that we can't control and aren't interested in controlling. It's down to everybody else's individual inspiration and genius to take things further.
And we just love books. Because
Yeah.
like, you know, as we're talking about the body, so I can probably roll all this back together again. So the thing with the book is that it's built on the size of the body. So it's built on how big it is to fit in your hand, how far away it has to be for you to read it. Like the book
an extension of the body.
The book comes out of the body. And when we're talking also about fear, and we're talking about the disruption of people through the online media and just the endless pressure and the bitching and the attention seeking, if you read a book, then you're regaining control of your attention span. If you have a physical book and you read a chapter a day, then you will significantly rewire your brain from the damage that you're doing to it with doom scrolling. And you'll start to see the world in a different way. And when the lights go off, when everything goes wrong, you've got books on your shelf, and you can sit and you can read a book. You can read a book out loud to your lover. For fuck's sake, read books to each other. You know, like there are.
It is.
You know, these are
sexy.
an incredible piece of never beaten technology.
I think it's like a shark. Books are like sharks. They have already reached their sort of like their perfect form. It's just variations on a perfect form now. And we're all just doing what we can to do that thing.
Yeah, I love that. As McClellan said, right? The medium is the message.
McClellan.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Sabrina.
No, of course. I could talk about books forever.
And I just want to say Scarlet Imprint is the best. I am friendly with a lot of inner traditions people. Shout out Toby Chapel and that whole crew. But I have to say, for me, it's Scarlet Imprint. So I'm just saying that, not in hopes to get you on my show, Peter, but you know, you want to come on.
That's great, Jim. Thank you.
The later traditions like sent us out on how many authors, so it's was there anything else that you two would like to even add before we start to wrap it up that you'd like to say something about? I guess maybe anything really, I guess. Anything you want to leave us with?
Just I think we're in a really good state. I think we have an occult community with a whole range of powerful publishers with different voices at different price points that are making stuff available. We have online communities like this, which are allowing people to have conversations in real time, which is hugely important. We've had some brilliant conferences, like the Occult conference in Berlin last year was like just superb. Just to have people and bodies in space, because people in space don't talk shit, because there are consequences. So everyone meets on a level, and you realize what people are like, and you learn a lot more from people that way than you do anywhere else. So we're in a good, in a dangerous, unpredictable world. But I think as a community of practitioners, it's just wonderful to continue to share and to drive the tradition onwards.
I think, I agree. We've got an apocalypse coming anyway, like in maybe 20 years or something. So let's just make the most of it. Well, probably less than.
Within 5 years,
enjoy it while we're here. We're on this side of the veil.
Exactly. That's good.
That was very well said. Thank you both for coming on. I thought that was a great discussion. There was a lot of great stuff said. I know we kind of veered off a little bit off of the actual topic, but I was really glad that we got you on and everybody chimed in and the way it went. Before we wrap it up, I'll let everybody, I guess, kind of promote themselves again. We'll start over again with you, Sabrina, over in the corner. What is going on? Please let everybody know where they can find your work.
Hello. Yeah. So you can find everything you need to know about me at sabrinamscott.com. I've got 5 books out, 4 journals, 2 podcasts, too many things going on, but it's interesting. So check it out and say hello. I love connecting with folks in this space. Thanks for letting me be here.
Of course. Well, thank you for joining. And Jin the Ninja, what is going on, sir? Please.
What is up, boss? Thank you so much for allowing this meta magic to happen, because it is an incredible honor. I know I'm a little goofy today, probably, but it's just fanboy nerves. So we'll just say that the dakinis are dancing in my mind. But if you want to check me out, you can check me out at Wukong Reborn, WUKONG Reborn on Twitter, X, or the show at Threshold Saints on both IG and Twitter, or at thresholdsaints.substack.com. Of course, you can find us at the Gray Lodge, which Matt Murrah, of course, is our webmaster. So at the True with a V plus Ultra baby, thetruegraylodge.com, you can see all of our episodes and also the Threshold Saints episodes with the members of the Gray Lodge. And so special shout out to Solar Exile, who couldn't make it but was here in spirit, and also just pretty much that's it. I mean, it's been an incredible couple weeks, and just like this whole year, even though it's like we're transitioning, not yet, but transitioning soon into the year of the Fire Horse. I think in terms of generative discussions, progressive theories of magic, and sort of aeonic currents, I think that we've been hitting it. So thank you so much, Nick, and everyone who made it to the panel.
Oh, of course. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And Brandon, please let everybody know where they can find all your stuff.
Great. Thanks, Nick. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Scarlet Imprint. It's so amazing to meet you. I feel so lucky and so grateful for Nick that he allows me to come on here and then meet such fantastic individuals all around here. So yeah, please, everyone, go over to Magus in the Media at my YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, share with your friends. We're trying to show everyone that magic is everywhere and all around us. I have all the things: TikTok, X, Instagram. Also, if you ever and all are interested in learning the path of the warrior, head over to my Meraki Kung Fu Instagram as well and DM me. We can figure it out together. And again, thank you all for this fantastic talk.
Oh, thank you, sir. I always appreciate your outlook on things. So thank you.
Thank you.
And Ethan, please let everybody know what's up.
Well, that was so fun. And the whole conversation reminded me of the idea of the breakthrough. As people go through breaks, that's the tough part, and the breakthrough is the reward. So let's keep putting forth that energy. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And I'm easy to find online. I share Tai Chi as well, like Brandon, and I've written several books. Again, I like to think I'm easy to find, and look forward to more breakthroughs. And Scarlet Press, thank you so much for all your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Matt, sir.
Yes. Thank everyone for the conversation. It was really nice, especially Peter and Occult. It was very nice meeting you guys. And yeah, you can always find me as @MattMura19. That's going to be on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, Ko-Fi, maybe some other place. There's also my website. That's going to be Kabbalah.com, KAABALAH.com. And like I said, there's the tarot little thing that I'm running. So you can find more information about that on my Twitter pin post, or just DM me in any of these and I'll be happy to share. Thanks again.
Oh, thank you. And Headless Giant, my man.
Thank you. You can find me at the Headless Giant podcast at gmail.com. If you have any crazy stories about esoteric events or paranormal events, send it to us and we'll read it out on Thursdays. And if you also want to check out the Trilogues with Ethan Indigo, that's on Sunday mornings. We've been having some really good ones lately. But if you want to continue the conversation, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And before we wrap it up, Peter Alkisti, if you would like to add anything, let everybody know where they can find your stuff, your website, whatever you'd like to plug.
Yeah, just come and find us at scarletimprint.com.
We're on IG and
all the links go off the website. So come and have a look. And if
Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks for everyone. We really,
it's been really good conversation.
Really lovely to share time with you guys and have a good talk.
I appreciate you both. I think we had an amazing discussion here today, and it really felt great afterwards. So I appreciate it, and hopefully maybe in the future we'll get you on again. And thank you, everybody, again, who was on the show. I appreciate it. And everybody in the chat, that's what's up. That's why I go live. I appreciate all the comments and everything. And that is the end of another Occult Rejects. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.